How would it look if I just kind of played on my phone for like 5 minutes and nobody in the chat
It could work.
said something, and you played on your
I'm
laptop?
not playing on my laptop.
You're playing on your
I'm
laptop.
trying to get into the YouTube because I wasn't.
You're playing that
prepared.
farm game that you always play.
Farm?
Hi, everyone. We're live. Thank you for joining us. I'm Wally.
And then
I look at her like she's going to forget saying that. Thank you very much for joining us. Nanette's adjusting again.
it's not adjusting.
See the fit? How about that? You know who this is? Hooked on Geckos. It took me 17 years to find.
It's hooked on geckos.
Hooked on Geckos. It took me like 17 years to realize that Nikki Underberg is hooked on geckos. But the fit today is hooked on geckos. I love the colors. Pink is my color. Is pink my favorite color?
No,
I don't think so either.
you are.
What's happening, Nanette? What happened today?
I'm just trying to get on live here. What happened today? Nothing. I was like really lazy today.
You weren't lazy. You helped me
slept
fish.
in.
You helped me fish. You helped me.
Fish.
I looked at the fish tanks and
The empty fish tank.
the empty fish tanks.
No, I slept in. It was my first day of no school for a week and a half.
First day of no school. This is
Actually
going to
slept in.
be an interesting look. I wish I had like a computer printout screen paper where you know how it folds and folds, and I could do that kind of like Santa's list
Mhm.
of your to-do list for the next.
The one that I created for myself. Yes.
Do you have a to-do list?
I have a spreadsheet.
Oh my
yes.
gosh! Oh my gosh! Well, I have one for you too. So,
Yeah. Well, you
but
can
it's
just
it's
you
in
can
a
just
spreadsheet form.
rip yours up and throw it away.
No, I'm not doing that because I'm sure there's differences, and my list takes priority. So, we also what happened today? Spreadsheets. What happened today? What did we do this afternoon?
This afternoon, what did I do? Oh, I helped you feed downstairs.
And do what? Right behind us. What did you help us?
Well, I
What
don't
did you
even
help me
know
do?
what those were.
So
They're white lined something. I don't know. You got a box of geckos in today.
we got a big box of geckos. We got 20
that
geckos
annoyed the
in.
dog really, really bad because the guy rang the doorbell.
We
off
did
the
not eat
horn.
waffles, Frank. We did
No.
not.
No, we had brats off the grill.
and
Drew
brats.
made. They were good.
You got to say it like this. We had brats. We got 20 geckos, 8 white line geckos, and we got a gecko. I might not even tell everybody what we got.
Yes, Angie, we are. Angie just sent you a message. I hope you're ready for a lot of bark.
Oh, yes. Looking forward to that because we
And
just
not
set up a
dog bark,
bunch.
Angie.
Yeah. Are you barking at us?
Better
What
not
the
be a
heck?
dog.
So we got 2 different animals. I might hold back the other animal. Hope everybody enjoyed, though, the video that we posted this week on the show display, the towers. Stadium. Thank you. I was struggling with that name, and I knew that I couldn't come up with it. Again, from Daniel from Gecko Harmony. Guys, if you haven't seen this video, we just posted it yesterday. Pretty cool stuff.
It was fun.
Yeah, we put 2 of them together at the show, and we probably had, how many people do you think?
I don't know. People constantly were stopping and wanting information.
We had, I would say 10 people stopped and said, hey, what's going on with this stand? It looks really cool. And Daniel finally messaged me today and said lots and lots and lots of people are asking him about this. So that is super cool. It's a game changer for us. What's wrong? I know mine does too. I don't know. I think the video makes it look crazy, right? All right.
That was where you were supposed to say, no,
So
your hair looks fine, sweetheart.
Yeah, I blew that one. Sorry. You look fine, sweetheart.
Move on.
We had a reptile show Sunday, and it was good, but it's a typical summer. It wasn't too busy, but a lot of people were buying, which it is what it is. But it was a little bit light because it's starting to become summer, and we just know that. We have a heavy fall, winter, and especially spring schedule where our shows are just crazy. This was a little bit more calm. We got to talk a lot to some people, and that worked out really, really well. But we also I actually walked around a little bit, which is, I don't know, I can't remember the last show where I walked around the show to see other vendors and talk to other vendors. We talked to a young fellow, young is, as far as I'm concerned, very young, that is doing some amazing, amazing things. I'm going to see if I can present this. Bear with me here. This is I'm going to see if I can share this video. Take a look at this, folks. I'm hoping it's sharing. It is.
Mhm.
Take a look at how nice this display is. I've got the sound off because pretty much it's show noise. Look how professional this is. And we're going to find out more from Dyllan Stroede of Resort to Bio. I said that wrong, in just a minute. But you can see some of the things that he has here. But more importantly, we're going to find out about his company and how he created it, the steps that he went through. But more importantly, we're going to find out about Bioactive. And this should be a really, really fun experience.
That was his little girl.
It
but I
was
gave
his
that
little girl.
frog to it. I didn't even
Aw.
realize that.
Is that right? Did she stop at the table and you gave her
They
a little
came by
frog?
and I think I gave that. She looks very familiar. I think I
Oh,
gave her a
cool.
little frog, a pink or a purple frog. I think it was a purple frog.
That,
I didn't realize that was them.
I think that was amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Dyllan, and we're going to talk about Resort to Bio. Dyllan, how are you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing good. Always busy here, but doing really, really well. We can hear you. We can see you very well. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with people that jump into doing this kind of thing. And it's the reason is I've been doing this for 25 years, and I'm still trying to get my table to look nice. I'm still trying to do things to promote our business. And I glance over at your displays, and it's like, this guy, it looks like he's been doing this for as long as I have.
Believe it or not, that was my third expo.
I believe it because I've heard the story a little bit. But for our viewers, before we get into Bioactive, tell everybody about yourself. Number one, about yourself. Let's get some background information about yourself, family, work if you're working. And that's kind of a loaded question, but also about, and then kind of delve into how Resort to Bio started, if you wouldn't mind.
Awesome. So, everyone who's new to me. My name is Dyllan, and I am 22 years old. So yes, I am young. It's funny. I could hear because my girlfriend and my daughter are out there watching in the living room on the TV. And I heard my daughter going hi when you were introducing yourself.
Oh,
it was funny.
Cool.
I was trying to contain myself. And yes, you did give her a little frog at the expo.
Okay,
she
that was
loved
her.
it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that was you guys.
She played with it the whole expo. It was one of her favorite things. She loved it. But yeah, so I'm 22 years old, and I've always been a very big fan of bugs. And growing up, we were just an animal family. I mean, we had a lot of farm animals in my household, but we kept chickens inside the house, which was a little unusual. We've had birds, cats, dogs, lots of rodents, gerbils, and reptiles growing up. But I didn't really get into the reptiles too much until after I got out of high school and I started living on my own. But growing up as a kid, every weekend because I'm from Watertown, Wisconsin. That's my hometown.
Oh, okay.
So currently, I live in Wausau area, Wisconsin, so more central. I moved up here to just try to start a new life, I guess you could say. But when I was younger, every weekend I'd go out to my grandparents' house. Every weekend from age, say 4 to like 13. And she's got a lot of land out in the country. And I would always be running around her yard with butterfly nets, and I'd probably go through 10-15 nets a year because I was so aggressive with them, but I would catch all the bugs that I could. And my grandma never knew. There was one time I came up to the house with an ice cream bucket with probably about 50 frogs in it, and I opened it and they all jumped out, and all the chickens were trying to peck at the frogs, and everyone was screaming. It was a funny day. Oh, for me it was, not for my grandma. She was freaking out quite a bit. But I just always grew up with a love of bugs and just animals in general. And I would say probably my senior year of high school, I got really interested into ants and ant keeping. And I don't know if anyone in the chat knows Ants Canada. Ants Canada, love that man. I've been watching his content for probably 10, 15 years. I love him so much. He was probably the first person who got me into actually wanting to take care of bugs as a whole. And I would say that I tried probably 15 to 20 times to catch queen ants and start my own colonies. And I struggled a lot. I actually have a couple colonies right now. Maybe later I can bring them out. I just caught them because it was an optional flight season. So I have 2 different species of carpenter ant queens and caught one of them. My daughter actually found it. I was having a cookout and my daughter was in the driveway playing with a bug, and I go over to see what she's playing with, and it was a freshly mated queen ant.
Wow.
So I collected that one. And then the other one I actually found at work inside my factory. I was walking back from the bathroom and I just saw it on the ground. So now I believe one of them, the first one I caught has from my work has some queen ants or some eggs. Sorry, I'll grab it.
Yeah, absolutely. Angie is saying show and tell. Angie loves to see animals.
Yeah, I don't know if the other queens laid because I haven't messed with them, because you're with queens when you first start test tubes set up, you're not supposed to mess them very much. So I got both of them in this. These are actually Ants Canada's products. So it's basically a test tube setup.
Okay.
And so you have water, a cotton ball that absorbs water, but it doesn't let it fall through. And then you have the chamber, which kind of, it's similar to how in the wild, how a queen ant will dig its first chamber, and they like it small and compact like this. And if you can actually see, if it'll focus, she's got some eggs. My camera doesn't like the autofocus, but she's got some eggs in there. And then you plug the other end in with a cotton ball for airflow, and she's been pulling at it. But typically you keep them in this type of setup for until they have about 30 to 50 worker ants, and then you can start putting them in an outworld. And then this is the other one that I caught last week or a couple weeks ago, but she doesn't have any eggs yet. But I'm hoping that this time I can actually be successful with them, because one of my things is I would like to possibly bring ants into the bug hobby and bring ants, starter ant colonies, queens with some workers and some eggs, and sell those. So that if people want to possibly start their own ant colony, if there's any teachers out there that would like a fun educational like biology product. Yeah. And it's not very often queen ants keep their wings. I saw Frank talked about, typically after a queen ant mates, they rip off their wings, and they will sometimes eat the wings, because ants have wings. The queens do and the males do.
No, I had no idea.
And the after the males mate, they pass away, and then the queens will rip their wings off, and sometimes they'll eat them and use it as nutrients to start their first batch of brood. And they use the fat reserves in their muscles for their wings. Their body will use that to also help with starting their first batch. But yeah, so kind of spiraled a little bit there, but to go back into it. So I struggled a lot in high school with trying to keep ants. I had a colony that I got up to like 50 worker ants, and I introduced an outworld, and they crashed on me, and I was so devastated. Well, then I started getting into reptiles, and my first reptile that I owned on my own as an adult was a veiled chameleon. One of the most difficult species of anything to start with is a chameleon.
Great starter reptile. Absolutely. We did the same thing.
I went to a pet store and I spent like $1,000, and then came home and did like 40 hours of research and realized everything that I purchased was pretty much incorrect for them. And then that's when I found the Chameleon Academy, if you know who they are. I love Chameleon Academy.
Love them.
Such a great guy. I have all of his care guides. Bill is such a great guy. I have all of his care guides printed out. And I used to have 3 chameleons back here, but a couple of them have since passed away. I got their ashes here. Ellie and Stitch. And I cremate all my animals. I don't care if they're just reptiles. I cremate them. So I got into the whole spiral. I actually have my panther chameleon in Miami. He's back there.
Oh, cool.
His enclosure looks like a jungle. And so after I got the panther chameleon, after I got my veiled chameleon, it was a spiral from there. I met my current girlfriend, and she had a bearded dragon. And then we got another one, and then we got a crested gecko, and then a gargoyle gecko. And we ended up, I think the most reptiles we had at one point was 8. And then, so this is kind of where this goes into is, I felt like my care was inadequate for a lot of my animals. So I did hours and hours and hours of research. And I was like, you know what? I want to make all of these guys bioactive enclosures. So I started doing research on bioactive enclosures and what's all needed. And so I invested quite a bit of money into giving them all my reptiles tank upgrades and turning them into bioactive enclosures. And I was like, well, I need bugs. So yes, they do escalate very quickly. So I went to an expo and I bought 5 species to start off with. I got zebras, I got dairy cows, Porcellio laevis white. I think I got orange cream, Porcellio pernonsis. I got one other species. What else did I get? I got another species, but I can't think of it off the top of my head because I was going to put those in my enclosures. But then I was like, well, my reptiles are going to eat some of them. So I decided that I was going to try breeding them. So then I started doing research on how to breed isopods. And I was like, oh, this is pretty easy. And so I ended up making them their first enclosures. And I'd say I had them for about 6 months. I was just taking care of them before I don't have any. I do have one species of scaber. But after about 6 months, and I was having troubles with zebras in the beginning because they're more of a drier species, and I think I was overwatering them. After I kind of got the hang of it, I went from probably 5 species to 30 to 40 species in the span of 8 months, and I just started falling in love with isopods. And I had my entire spare bedroom now is pretty much devoted to isopods. Isopods, I'd say, are my main passion aside from bioactive in general. And so I ended up. I'm a very frequent at this point. I was a very frequent flyer at the expos, and I started making friends with a good amount of the vendors. And I had a lot of vendors saying, "Hey, you got quite a." I have dwarf whites and they're segregated. They do not. It's been about 4 years, and I have been able to keep my dwarf whites from infesting any other colonies.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy talk.
I have never had another colony. I'm concerned about my dairy cows right now. They might have possibly finally invaded my dairy cow bin. But so I decided I had enough people telling me in my ear, you would be perfect. You should start coming to these expos. This is perfect for you. You're very passionate about this. You love this. And so I decided that I was going to try to make a business. And
let me ask you real quick before you get into how it, kind of transitioned from a hobby to a business. Let me ask you, were you going to like scaled up? And for our viewers that aren't in the area, I'm going to kind of go through this real quick, but scaled up expos, who were you meeting? Just if they're in the chat, that would be kind of cool to
Oh,
drop some names.
the number one biggest person that I have to give a thank you to is his name's Snot Rat Gordon. Also he used to be known as Bugs and Beings,
Yep.
but now he goes by Snotty Bugs. He is one of my best and closest friends. He has helped me out so much in the hobby. He is one of the biggest people who pushed me to actually start doing this as well, and he's one of my biggest mentors. And I have a lot of love for him. Wes Pleco, if any of you guys know who that is, I got a lot of stuff from him as well, and some advice from him as well. And a lot of people, honestly, a lot of people that I met, and there's so many Facebook groups for isopods, and I've met quite a few people who I've learned a lot from, and I just made a bunch of connections, and I started figuring out, what am I all going to need? What do I want to sell to people? Because I'm like, well, I want to sell isopods. That's my main passion. I love isopods. And I'm like, well, I should probably sell stuff to care for them. Because I would say me as a customer, one of my biggest struggles that I had going to expos was you might find a vendor here and there who has something to take care of isopods and other invertebrates, but trying to find someone who carries everything that you need to take care of isopods was a struggle for me that I noticed. I went to multiple expos. So I was like, well, I would like to carry everything that you could possibly ever need to care for isopods. And another thing is, like, I'm young and I struggled financially to afford everything. So I wanted to make sure that it's also affordable for people. I want to make sure I give the highest quality product that I can give at the most affordable price for other people. And so in all of my products that I sell, I use myself. If I decide to add a new product to my table, I use it for about 6 months. I have some powder colonies that are my testers for stuff, just to make sure. I always make sure I use everything before I actually put it on my table to make sure it's safe for everyone else. And then I also, as far as my products go, when I package stuff, I weigh all my products. I make sure that every bag weighs the same, because I want to make sure. I've been to expos where I've had a vendor sell leaf litter, and he would have a bag that looked like it was a lot more full than the other bag. And I'm like, well, I don't want to get gypped. And I'm like, professionalism is a very important to me. So all of my products, I weigh and make sure that they're all filled evenly. Even if a bag looks smaller, it's probably got a little bit more air in it than the other bag. But I try my best to have a very professional standpoint on everything. I have really bad OCD and ADHD, and so I'm very strict. Because my girlfriend helps me with my business, and one of my really good friends also helps me with my business. And I'm a very big control freak. It's something that I need to work on. I want things a certain way. I feel like if I don't do it myself and someone else does it, it's going to be done wrong, even if I know that they're going to do it right. And so it's something I'm heavily working on, is trying to
I live it.
toss some responsibilities to other people and trust them that they're going to do it to my quality standard. But I was like, well, if I'm selling all this stuff to take care of isopods, you pretty much use the same stuff for bioactive enclosures. So that's where the crossover went into there. And so now I pretty much I'm trying to sell absolutely everything that you could possibly ever need to create any bioactive environment, whether it's tropical, arid, or neutral, and anything you could possibly ever need for isopods and invertebrates as a whole.
I'm gonna jump in real quick here. We talk about reptile shows a lot on this channel, probably more than we should. I think people want to hear, animal stories and things like that. But I will say it's important for us because we spend a lot of time thinking about it, and you obviously do as well. And I tell you what, folks, if you're thinking about doing reptile shows, if you're currently doing reptile shows, and you're not taking advantage of bringing the same thing that you're using in your facility or your culture, your collection, I should say, if you're not bringing that stuff to reptile shows, we do geckos, And we do isopods. We don't have the full range like you do for isopods because we bring the full range for geckos, all the breeding supplies and everything other
But I
than the
still
whole
have
enclosure.
I still have the food, the setups, and I have leaves,
Exactly. But
the
that's,
basics.
we can't go up here because we just don't have the resources. I love the fact that, again, we saw the video. You can walk through that table and watch all of the different pieces in there. You have the one-stop shop. That is so important. What a great way to look at it. Great way.
And it's been a very big trial and error on how I wanted to do it, because my last expo I had 4 tables. This expo was different. I actually got some racks and some shelves. My last expo I had some, but I had everything spread out on 4 tables, and it looked very overcrowded. So I did my best to try to come up with a solution to that. And my last expo, I was shocked at myself on how well my table looked.
Look great.
And I appreciate it. And now I'm actually getting prepared because I'm going to be going to Fond du Lac. Not Fond du Lac. We just did Fond du Lac. Lacrosse.
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse is one.
Done.
Lacrosse is never one that I've been to ever. So I'm excited for
Mhm.
lacrosse to actually been there.
Yep.
But so as far as of right now, I have 55 species of isopods that I keep and 7 different species of springtails that I keep.
Nice.
Also, I pretty much sell every single product you could think of that you would need to take care of springtails as well as isopods. I'm very big on springtails. Me and Ryan Pavey are actually very good friends. And
Springtails
he's helped me a
US.
lot too. Yeah, Springtails US. He's helped me a lot as well. I plan on getting, I think, 8 more species of springtails. A few
my gosh.
hobby.
There's that many species in springtails?
Oh gosh, yes.
Oh, there's over
Hundreds.
2,000-3,000
Really? I didn't
easily.
realize that.
Yes, I think in Wisconsin alone, you can find 10 to 15 different types in the wild.
Huh.
Because right now I keep white albino lilac springtails, yellow albino lilac springtails, bilious ant springtails, which have become my new favorite for bioactive enclosures. And then there's the temperate springtails and the tropical pink springtails. And then I keep Florida orange springtails as well. And I had tie reds. They crashed on me. I have horrible luck with tie reds. Some people can get them to go, and I'm struggling. Other people also have a lot of struggles too, but I love their beautiful red hue to them. So I really hope that I'm able to sometime soon figure out how to take care of them, because I love to have them. And then as far as isopods go, I could not name all of my species. It's a lot.
Oh,
But I'd say I have a list. I'd say my
Sure.
favorite species that I own right now out of all of them is my ember bees.
Nice.
I love my ember bees. They were a species that I've been wanting to acquire for about a year and a half now. And Derek.
Yeah.
But this year I probably am going to be getting about another 40 to 50 different species of isopods. I have a lot of trades lined up with people, and the few species that I'm going to be splurging on for myself for fun. But my biggest struggle, because I have a lot of product, so I was stuck to only vending at the Rothschild expos because I only live 5 minutes away. So I can make multiple trips there with a vehicle because of all the amount of product that I have. But me and my friend, we fixed up his trailer, and now I have access to a trailer. So that's why I was able to go to Fond du Lac, and I was a little disappointed with how slow it was, but I did very good at Fond du Lac still. But
like I said earlier, it's hard. You have to, and I know that you have, and you will even more so as you do more shows. You have to set expectations, and you have to realize that summer is slower at reptile shows. It is what it is. You're going to get about 75% of the people. All the shows up, this year so far, up to this last show, has been over expectations
Yeah.
for us at least.
Yep.
But this show was a
It was
little
slower,
bit
but
slow. But buyers,
also
we had
the-
buyers all over.
It's the end of the school year, so
Yep.
you've got all the graduations, you got all the parties. It's also the biggest month for weddings in the year. Normally, next month will probably be bigger. Lacrosse will probably be pretty good, I would think. Lacrosse has always been a good show for us. It's full, it's fun. So I'm excited that you get to go to that one. You'll have fun there. How many tables do you
Yes.
have there?
3. I normally would have to do 4, but I wanted to cut down on my overhead costs, so that I invested in shelves and racking systems, and now I'm
Yep.
able to squeeze it all in 3, and it looks even more professional than it did when I had 4 tables. So
Right.
I consider that a
Yes.
win.
Yes.
Both.
I didn't consider your tables to be overcrowded. I
No.
thought that they looked extremely
I was concerned.
professional.
No, I think
I was
they look
very
great.
concerned.
Yeah.
I did
No.
a mock setup in my garage because I have 3 8-foot tables in the garage. So I did a mock setup in my
Is this
garage
guy
before I
related
came to the
you,
show.
or what's the deal? Because we've done that multiple times as well. Measured out the tables, put it all out to see how well it was going to look or not look. Yep.
But
Shane, absolutely.
it worked out very well. It worked out very, very well.
And I
'Cause in the
think that if
future-
you pull away from a show like that, and if you do good, great. If you do okay, that's okay too, as long as, and here's the key, I think that you're alluding to, if I can put words in your mouth, that you set this up and you learned a lot about your setup and how things looked. And that's huge. That's even more valuable. If you're going to be in this for the long run, that's way more valuable than the instant, I did really, really good at this one show. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I was going to say, because my first show, I got lucky. I only paid for 2 tables. And after I kind of was gathering everything in my garage, because my first show was last year, September Rothschild.
Okay.
I was like, it was like 3 days before the X one. I was like, shoot, I need more than 2 tables. I have too much product.
Yep.
At the expo, I got lucky. The vendor next to me canceled, and they had 2 tables, and Brittany gave them to me. And so then I had 4 tables, and I was like, awesome. And then my next expo was Rothschild. It was the last Rothschild one, which I think was last month or 2 months
Yeah, it
ago.
was last month, I think.
And then that one I did buy 4 tables for, but I feel like a lot of people passed my table because everything was kind of laid out flat, and I think it was a little overwhelming. And then S&J Terrariums, shout out to him. He came over to me and he was like, hey, you should really, which is something I thought about doing, but I didn't want to get into it yet because nice racking systems can be pretty expensive. So he was like, hey, I think you should really get some racks. And he's like, it'll help reduce your table space and it'll also look a lot more presentable. So I decided to bust out the credit card and do the investment before this show. And I did it and I don't regret it. And I did very well at this show. And I met a lot of new people because I've always going to the Rothschild ones. So I met a lot of new people and I saw some reoccurring people. I've had quite a few reoccurring customers, and it's nice because every show that I've been to, despite how low it's, every show I've went to for the most part, because my first show, big Packer game going on, it was dead. My second show was kind of semi-dead. And then Fond du Lac was the busiest one I've ever vended at, not the busiest one I've ever been to as a customer. So I know how busy they get since I've been going to every expo for such a long time. I always manage to break even at least because I sell such a good variety of products, and I sell a lot of stuff that people could want, but people also need. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do is like me, I'm an in-person person. I'm a people person. If I can buy something in person with someone else, I don't really like buying stuff online, like especially with cork bark. If you're buying cork bark online, you don't know what you're going to get. If you're building an enclosure, you want that perfect piece for your enclosure. And there's so many things that I would personally prefer to purchase in person versus online. And a lot of my products that I sell, you can only I don't see a lot of vendors selling half the products that I sell. And so that's why that was another thing where I was like, you know, me as a customer for 3-4 years, I know what I wish I would have seen at expos. And now that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to bring what I wish I saw at expos into it. And
I'm gonna
because like in the
I'm gonna pick on you for just a second here. You said a couple of things there. I've been going to reptile shows for a long time, and then
He's
you
only
just said
22.
I've been going to reptile shows for 2 to 3 years, and no offense at all, the level that you've attained so far in those 2 or 3 years is incredible. I'll say again, a lot of people, it takes a long time. Who was just saying that they've been going to reptile
20
shows for
years,
20
Billy.
years? Billy. We've been going to reptile shows for 25 years, and I think it's it can be a gradual process for people to build up that experience and make changes. I give you a lot of credit in that you're seeing your vision and you're making the changes necessary to do the right things. And when I say that, the biggest thing to me is that you're that one-stop shop. And if you don't sell today or the next show, I will guarantee that after a year, people will go, hey, Joe, where do I get bioactive supplies? Oh, well, you know where you've got to go. You've got to go to Resort to Bio. That sticks. The consistency of going to all of these shows will stick in people's minds. I'll guarantee. We stopped doing breeding supplies a couple of years ago for about 4 months. The geckos are going crazy 4 months. A couple of years ago, and we stopped for about 4 months, and the geckos were going crazy. Let's not do all these, this little thing and that little thing. And we couldn't believe how many people were asking for hatch material and hatch boxes and this and that. So we added it back in, and obviously we're making, and it's not all about the money, but we're making way more with the geckos than we are the supplies. But it's that fact of people keep that in the back of their minds. So great job. Really, really good job of having that foresight.
I mean, me as a hobbyist, I would look in these, I would always be in Facebook groups like, what wood rod is safe for isopod, like all these products that I sell, and I'm fully knowledgeable on all of them. And I'm also very well knowledgeable on a very wide variety of reptiles as a whole. So like I had some girl come up to me at the last expo, and we talked about chameleons for 30 minutes, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't know you know anything about chameleons." And I was like, "Actually, I'm like, they're my favorite reptile. I used to own 3 of them." And I have a very, if it's something that I'm not interested in, I can't pay attention. But if I'm interested in it, I consume myself in it. I will stay up for hours and watching YouTube videos and reading forums online. And I'd say for the few years that I've been doing what I've been doing, I have a lot more knowledge than I feel like a lot of other people would have that have been doing it as long as I have. And I'm a very much like, I'm a go-getter. Like if I have my mind set on something, I'm going to do it. And that's why it's like, I'm very new to the hobby, but it doesn't, or I'm very new to the expo scene, but it doesn't look like it. And I just came in with a sledgehammer and I was ready to go. And I've met so many people. I've had so many interesting conversations. I've learned so much myself from people. I forgot, but I learned something at my last, one of my expos. I learned there's this particular species of isopods that I have. They're called Spains, Armadillium officientals. They're also called hissers is another thing, but I learned that like that species, they stay pregnant for 9 months before they drop their brood, which is not not normal for isopods. Typically every 2 to 3 months they're dropping brood. So being a species of isopod being pregnant for 9-10 months is it's very interesting to me. And like all the interesting things that I've learned and care tips and ideas that I've learned from people in the community and just doing these shows. And I love it. I love learning more about it. I love hearing more. I love being able to help people, because I was very lost. I knew nothing, and I had so many people help me, and now I'm able to do that for other people. And that makes me very happy.
And I think you have to keep learning. I think I got the wrong point here. Angie is asking, we're going to talk about bioactive in just a second here, folks.
Yeah.
Angie is asking, and you had mentioned this, your items are all safe. Do you collect from the woods?
Wild.
From the wild woods, from the woods. Do you collect from the wild?
So as far as dry goods are,
yep.
So I have a family friend who has a 70-acre maple tree farm, just pure maple trees. So I do some of my collecting from there. And then some of my stuff I bulk order. I have a friend who, his name's Brian Overton. I'll see if I can put his business in the description, but he has a lot more property than I do, and a larger variety than what I'm able to collect in Wisconsin. And I get a lot of stuff from him as well in bulk. And I've been using his products for over a year, everything that I've gotten from him. And his stuff is very safe, and I have a very great relationship with him. Let's say my wood rot and my maple wood rot and my maple leaf litter I collect from the wild. My bark, not cork bark, but my regular bark I collect. Sometimes I order it from my friend Brian. And then I saw that comment too. I didn't know if they said anything about species, but recently I have tried collecting a couple species of springtails from the wild and trying to just for fun, see how it goes. Yeah. And I've collected 2 species of isopods from the wild as well that I don't have available yet. I know you have them, the brickwork isopods. Yep. I've collected some of those. And then there's another species. I don't know what their common name is. I know what their scientific name is. I would have to look somewhere in my phone and find it.
I wonder if they're Oniscus ocellus, which are very common in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think really they have kind of like a rust hue to them, almost like they're Okay. I just recently collected them because I've heard that there's a high, the brickwork isopods, there could be a high yellow morph. And so I want to work on that. It's nice. Someone a long time ago in the hobby had it, and it's been kind of lost to the hobby. So I want to it's going to be a project of mine to try to get a high yellow, No, not that one, Norman. That one, I found one of those out in the wild, and I wanted to collect those as well. But I only found one, so I wasn't able to get enough for a colony. But that's one species I'm trying to get as well from the wild. People are asking about it, so I'm now going to find them.
While you do that, I'm going to get Frank's question if I can find it here again. Do you ever encounter? Can I get that up? Yeah. Go ahead.
Have you ever encountered pygmy types?
I'm assuming that's chameleons.
I don't know what he's talking about. Frank, what are you talking about?
Frank will ask or answer.
It's probably a type of waffle that he's asking about.
Pygmy types.
Well, he's asking if this is the
chameleons. Cool. Have you ever worked with any of the pygmy chameleons?
I have not. I have worked with Jackson chameleons, panther chameleons, and veiled chameleons. Nice. And I really want to get a carpet chameleon, really, really bad. I love them. They're gorgeous. But I've got to get more space before I can even consider another reptile. I have room for more isopods, but I do not have any more room for reptiles. Because
I'll let Wally come over. He'll show you how to find it.
I'll play Tetris at your house.
12 inches somewhere. He's got it all worked out
filled.
For you. You got another 14 tanks in there.
I do plan on getting a new place within the next year. So once that happens, then I'll be able to do a lot of expanding, because I really want to I want to get a lychee and a chewy gecko really bad. And my passion project is I want to breed satanic leaf-tailed geckos. I've heard it's going to be very difficult.
We had the fortune to talk to Steph Reisberg recently. Gosh, to help me with the name, Green Acre Exotics. Man, it was passing me. But we had a full, I think, 2-hour session on the small satanic Ebanawe Feste, I think the third one is, and we talked in depth, and that's for our Buy Me a Coffee members. Now publish that publicly shortly.
Angie wants to know if she should be looking for isopods on her land up north now.
Too many isopods. We have right now, we're full of isopods, as well as other things, I'm sure.
But typically, if you collect isopods from outside, what I would recommend at least is you want to wait for a few generations to breed and make sure they're 100% captive and pest, because some of the wild isopods can kind of grow immune to some pesticides out there. I would always breed 3 to 5 generations at least. Typically, I would take the original generation and I would breed them a couple times and take the babies and transport them into another bin and then release the adults back into the wild.
There you go.
And then from there, keep going. And then they're 100% safe. If you were to use them in a reptile enclosure and your reptile eats them, you don't have to worry about anything harmful. So as of right now, I've had my brickwork isopods for about a month and I've already had 2 generations of babies, which was kind of cool. I'm still trying to find that species.
Frank,
but
species out. Go back up and pull it up.
That's the
is that what he was referring
no,
to?
he's referring to that's the Europlatus.
No, he's
oh,
got
did he? Okay,
going. After the Nasadam comment, there was a.
If I miss it, let me know. I am having a hard time with scrolling here because I have too much stuff. I'm not going to find it.
I have it.
I can't see
and that's okay.
It's TRA.
I have the species.
Okay.
If you find it in the net, go ahead and
I can't do it though.
You can copy and paste.
Oh, all right. Here, I'll do it really quick. He's asking if
I just got to scroll up.
There you go.
You got it? Perfect.
Yes, that is the species.
Gotcha.
I think they're very cool. They have a very wide variety of colors, but they're all like different hues of, if I could call rust a color, a very large variety of different variants of the rust color. They're very skittish is what I've noticed.
They're calling them Rathke's woodlouse.
That was actually one of our first isopods that we ever started with. Boy, oh boy, 2 or 3 others. But we started with them and they did really, really well. And like you said, we didn't sell any of them. We let them just go. And it gave us a lot of experience. It gave me a lot of experience.
I gotta open up this window. It's getting toasty in here.
Sometimes they're mistaken for scavers, Frank is
saying. Yeah, I saw. Yep.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah, I'd say, because as far as I make my own substrate. I have I call it isopod substrate because it's more catered to isopods, but you can use it for I wouldn't recommend using it for an arid species, but a tropical species of reptile, it's perfectly fine to use with. I have. So look at my ingredients list. I got a lot of ingredients in there. But I got leaf litter, mushroom compost, wood rot, and I run my leaf litter and wood rot through a wood chipper so it's nice and fine for the mixture. I put worm castings in there, which doesn't really benefit the isopods at all. But say you were to put a couple plants in the bin with your isopods, it'll benefit the plants in that aspect. I have 2 different forms of, I have pulverized and pelletized limestone, which can act as food sources for isopods for calcium, but also helps balance any pH levels that because as the isopods live in there over time and they poop, their frass will increase the pH level, which can cause colony crashes. But my experience is when I've put pulverized limestone in the substrate, it helps stretch the soil longer. It helps balance that pH level for a little bit longer than if it weren't in there. And then I'm trying to think what else I put in there. If I save all my eggshells, and if I have enough, I'll throw them in a blender and throw some eggshells in there too. And then there's also topsoil, but I use peat moss as my main, because I know a lot of people for isopod substrate use topsoil.
Yep.
I use peat moss. I used to use topsoil, and I used to use Scott's potting soil mix.
Yeah.
And I have had a lot of issues with Scott's in the last couple of years. I think their quality has gone downhill by quite a bit. Whenever I use Scott's potting soil, my isopod bins get full of gnats. And I think a large part of that is because a lot of the places that sell Scott's potting soil keep the bags outside. And then gnat eggs get in there. And peat moss is typically too dry when you purchase it, and gnats aren't going to want to take care of that. But with Scott's potting soil, there's been a lot of fertilizer pellets leaking in there the last couple of years.
Really?
Yes, I would say I find 8 to 15 plus fertilizer pellet, the green and brown pellets.
Yeah.
I've been seeing. I've been finding them in Scott's potting soil, which threw me off a little bit because it's supposed to be organic. But the last time I used Scott's potting soil, there was a ginormous sharp chunk of glass in my bag, and I cut my finger on it.
Oh my gosh.
And I've been noticing the last couple of years that there's been a lot more garbage, just chunks of plastic and stuff in Scott's potting soil. And so I was kind of drifting away and experimenting, because my isopod substrate recipe is something that I created myself. I've used a lot of inspiration from other people who make it, and I've kind of came up with this is the 4th recipe that I've worked on. And so I'm very happy with it. But I stick to peat moss, because if you look at the back of pretty much every single bin of organic topsoil, like if you look at the bag, all organic topsoils are made up of 85% peat moss anyways. Mm-hmm. So to compensate for not using topsoil, I put in mushroom compost, plus isopods love mushroom compost. Mushrooms is pretty much their favorite food. So that's why I personally stick with peat moss, and I don't do Tops potting soil anymore. There's a different kind of organic topsoil brand that I actually do want to give a try with, and I actually have it pulled up on my phone. It is called Timberline's soil topsoil. It's organic. It looks like that. And I've heard a lot of good things about that topsoil, so I would like to get a bag. The closest place that sells it to me is like 30 minutes away, so I got to make a little commute for it. But I am fully intending on trying to give that a try, because I also make my own arid and tropical reptile substrate. I don't have that released yet. I have to order a bunch of bulk ingredients to make it on a bulk level for me to package and sell it. But I have my own recipes that I use in my enclosures, and I've had great success with them. So I would like to make those as well for other people to have good success with. Because in the future, I plan on, I want to start getting some manzanita wood, some grapevine, and some other kinds of sticks to use in enclosures, and plants. That is one of my things I'm most excited for. Is I do intend on getting into plants, but I am still learning plants myself.
You're going to have at these reptile shows, you're going to have about 20 tables. You're going to look like our friend Tristan from, oh gosh, can't think of his name. Gecko Junkie, who has, I think, probably 20 tables and a couple of booths in front of the tables, and just crazy. We've got a lot on these different items, products and everything. Oh yeah, gnats are terrible. We haven't talked about bioactive yet. And I think that that's an important subject. As you're providing all of these supplies, I think a lot of people are going to be asking, why is bioactive important? What is a good bioactive as opposed to a bad bioactive? What's your thoughts on bioactive?
So I wouldn't necessarily say there's a bad bioactive. I would say there's either it's bioactive or it's not.
There you go.
It's you can have a semi bioactive where you have bioactive substrate and you have isopods and springtails in there and fake plants. I would consider that semi bioactive. Fully hybrid or a full bioactive enclosure is when you have everything in the enclosure is alive. And I love bioactive specifically. I think it's very, very amazing and beautiful to bring a piece of nature into your house. I grew up around nature. I love nature. And I also believe that bioactive enclosures give the highest quality of life for the reptile itself. And you have like arid bioactive enclosures, which I would say arid bioactive enclosures are a little bit more difficult than tropical. You have less of a variety of plants that you can keep in there, and at the same time you don't want it to get too humid in there, but at the same time the plants and the living bugs that are inside of there need moisture and some sort of a microclimate. So typically with like my desert bio or more of an arid bioactive species, on the opposite side of the enclosure, what I will do is I'll put like a piece of cork bark with some sphagnum moss underneath it, and I'll like a nice flat piece, and I'll keep that moist, and so that the isopods and the springtails have a place to run to get their moisture. I usually keep that on the opposite side of the enclosure where the heat bulb is, so that it doesn't get fully dried out, and so that the heat bulb doesn't turn all of that moisture into humidity, because the more arid species of reptiles with higher humidity, it could potentially give them a respiratory infection.
Yep.
So you want to make sure that doesn't happen. And you also like succulents and air plants, I would say, are your best go-tos for arid environments. It's called the elephant-eared bush. It's a bush that has a whole bunch of these little leaves on it. I want to get one really, really bad, but they're a very nice filler, especially for big bearded dragon enclosures. They're nice, beautiful, big foliage vegetational bushes. Only problem with bearded dragons is they love to eat everything off of them, but as long as you take care of it, they'll grow back. But and with desert enclosures, you're not supposed to have too many plants because it's desert. But more of an arid environment, you could definitely get away with. You can have as many plants as you want, but you want to make sure you also try to have that desert landscape. And with desert bioactive enclosures, some people do drainage layers, some people don't. My personal opinion is I don't do a drainage layer in my desert enclosures. But what I would do is if I were to do a drainage layer, I would not use hydro balls. I would use pumice. I would use pumice and charcoal as a drainage layer, a very nice thin one. And I wouldn't even put any sort of barrier. I would just lay the substrate right on top of that. And then typically I would do like an arid bioactive substrate layer, and then on top of that I would put a nice little mixture of like excavator clay, and I love excavator clay. I love it so much. And Exoterra stone and desert mix, those two products I love a lot. And I'll usually do a 1-to-1 ratio of topsoil and play sand, and then I'll add some excavator clay and some Exoterra stone and desert mix, which is kind of cool because Exoterra has a few different colors for their stone and desert mix. So you can do a nice little variety of colors depending on what you're trying to do. And then, you have your rocks and your slate, and you have, I like to use driftwood and grapevine a lot in a lot of my enclosures, but like with my bearded dragons over here, the lights might be a little bit too bright. But I don't have any plants in their enclosures right now. I've been too busy to finish the whole plant section, but I have my nice heat bulb, because I have 2 beardeds. I have my nice heat bulb up here. There's a UVB light that you can't see. And then I actually have my heat bulb on it's a Arcadia. I only use Arcadia lights. I love Arcadia's lights so much. And I use the dimming bulbs. And then I have a piece of slate right down here in the bottom, and I use that as the basking spot. I know some people use cork bark as a basking spot. I prefer to use rocks for basking spots, because even when the lights turn off, that rock will maintain the heat for a few hours afterwards. And I've noticed my leopard gecko, especially when his lights go out, he loves to lay on his nice warm rock. Slate is like it's like a nice flat rock with a whole bunch of chips and edges around the sides of it. If you were to look it up on Google and look at images, I'd say some pet stores sell slate. Hardware stores sell slate as well, but if you were to get it from a hardware store, I'd highly recommend washing it.
If you go to a pet store, you're going to pay $1 bazillion. And
yes.
I'm going to throw a tip out there real quick, and you can take it for what it's worth. If you don't like it, that's cool too. I have a lot of breeding tanks that I need something flat, rocky, something that the geckos can get on and move around. So what I've done is I went out to Home Depot and I bought a box of no way.
Home Depot. Where I got mine.
And what it is a terracotta floor tile. And you can take that terracotta floor tile, you can take it out to the step in front of your house and stand on it and take a hammer and hit one edge, and now you have half of a sheet. Hit it again, now you have a quarter, or more. Or more if you hit it wrong. So what I'm saying is this tile, I think, looks really halfway decent in a tank because it's terracotta, and it's probably 1/10 the cost of slate. Slate is great, but it can be very expensive.
Actually found this one outside, but I've seen pieces of this at hardware stores. This is what I use in my reptile enclosures, especially specifically for my more arid species like my leopards and my beardies. Slate's awesome. And then I use a lot of other rocks, but I typically collect those from my grandma's house. But so we have a pretty unique place by me. Our Ace Hardware actually has a pet shop built into it.
Oh, neat.
Our local Ace Hardware, which is something that I've never seen before. And it's like it's its own third-party thing. But they run through Ace Hardware, and they do a lot better job than the pet stores around me, because I'm not a very big fan of Petco or PetSmart. I've just had interesting experiences there, and I'm sure I know a lot of other people have. But the Ace Hardware by me that has this pet department, they do a way better job. Actually, they keep all of their animals in bioactive enclosures at the store, which I think is pretty interesting. They sell quite a nice variety of rocks there too, and I'll get stuff from there as well. But yeah, as far as it goes for my arid environments, you have your lights, you have your tank. If you want a drainage layer, I recommend pumice. You can also use charcoal as a drainage layer. Typically what people do is they'll put pumice in the back, and then in the very front, they'll put charcoal just for the looks, so you don't see the white pumice in the front.
Yep.
And then I would say it's unnecessary for any sort of screen or barrier to separate it. You have your substrate, and then you can top it off with even play sand you could use if you'd like. And then you have your botanicals if you want. You could put pods in there. I love putting pods in my enclosures. The Ace Hardware store in Weston. Yeah, that's like 10 minutes from my house. I go there quite frequently.
So we're talking a lot about arid, and that's important for a lot of people. Probably sure, no problem. Probably the more used is for a tropical bioactive. What is your bare minimum for a standard bioactive used for, let's say, crested geckos or any animal that needs a more non-arid environment? What's your bare minimum?
I would do a layer of hydro balls, especially with someone who's newer to the hobby, because it is very easy to overwater in an enclosure. I would do like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch layer of hydro balls in the enclosure. You can use a screen, you can use a mesh. Reptile companies will sell mesh, but honestly, you can go to the store and just buy, like a hardware store, and buy a big tube of just window screen mesh. I would stay away from metal mesh because it can rust. I would stick with fabrics, but then there's a fabric that they use for outside when you're doing landscaping work. It's like a fabric that people put underneath mulch. It's just a solid fabric that allows water to drain through really nicely. That's my favorite thing to use. And then landscaping fabric. I love landscaping fabric. I have like 3 tubes in my garage because I build enclosures for friends, and if someone were to request and ask me to build them an enclosure for a species, I would, but I don't get that very much. But then your bioactive substrate, which pretty much what I use for my isopod substrate, for a substrate, I would say a nice base layer of either topsoil or peat moss is what I would start off with. Then for your cleanup crew, you're going to want some crushed up leaf litter and wood rot, and that's going to help with them. Then I take dried sphagnum moss and I cut up with a scissors into really fine pieces, and I mix that in there because that's going to help hold in and maintain that humidity for longer than if it wasn't in there. And then I would put mushroom compost, but you don't need to. I would say just wood rot, leaf litter, peat moss, maybe some limestone just for calcium. I would keep that at a bare minimum just for like basics. That'll get you going until you learn more and you figure out a better mixture to use. And then you can get away with some fake plants. And then if you were to want to go above and beyond, my entire mixture that has everything that you need in it, where I would do, actually I have the mixture that I have my tropical substrate mixture recipe. Where is it? It is in this notebook.
While you're looking for that,
right here.
Okay, go ahead.
So if you were going to go all out and try to make the best quality tropical substrate, I would use peat moss, play sand. You could use topsoil if you want, but like I said earlier, topsoil is pretty much mostly just peat moss anyways. I would use pelletized and pulverized limestone in the mixture, orchid bark or repti bark. They're pretty much the same thing. Charcoal, leaf litter, wood rot, worm castings, which is going to benefit the plants. A nice way to fertilize the plants without putting chemicals in the enclosure to harm your animals. Cypress mulch and coconut husk and fiber. Some of those things are more of like a filler to the substrate and to help keep it airy, because like coconut husk, cypress mulch, and orchid bark offer no nutritional value for your isopods or springtails. But they do create some aridness in the substrate, which you want. You want the substrate to breathe. You want to make sure water goes through. If you overwater it, you want to make sure it goes all the way through to that drainage layer. And then it'll provide a really nice medium for isopods to dig if they want to hide. And then plants to grow as well. But with all bioactive enclosures, you do need leaf litter. 100% you need leaf litter. And all bioactive enclosures, you need springtails and isopods. And there are more tropical isopods to choose from, and there are more arid. Same thing goes with springtails as well. I would recommend different species. So if it's an arid enclosure, there's woodrunner springtails, which are more of an arid species of springtails, which I sadly don't have any at the time. And then there's cotton springtails, which are more of an arid species of springtail. I would use those in a more arid. And then with a tropical environment, tropical pinks and temperate springtails are very good in neutral to more tropical enclosure. But I've recently been switching to a new species that's kind of the bilous ant springtails. I'd say they've kind of gotten introduced within the last year. They are my now go-to springtail species for more tropical environments. They reproduce quicker than temperates and tropical pinks, and I think they do a better job at cleaning up, but they're extremely, extremely jumpy. So if you ever buy a cup of them from someone, do not open them until you have the cup in the enclosure, because half of them will jump out the moment you crack that lid open.
What are some common mistakes that people are making with their bioactive setups? Have you had anybody kind of stopping at the table and kind of explaining, well, I tried this, it didn't work, and then you kind of had to walk through the process?
As of right now, not really.
Okay.
I have a lot more people asking me and struggling with isopods and asking me questions about isopods and how to take care of them. I'm trying to think.
I know.
I would say that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
A lot of people just ask me what to do, and I tell them what I would do, like what I kind of just did. I have more people asking me for advice rather than a lot of people coming to me interested in doing it and saying, oh, this is what I'm doing. What would you recommend for me to do this? Versus I haven't really encountered too many mistakes. I would say the biggest thing that I personally know is with a bioactive enclosure, you want to set it up a month to a couple months before you actually plan on introducing your reptile into the environment. You want the isopods and the springtails to establish in the environment before you actually put the reptile in there. And then you also want the plants to grow a little bit of vegetation, because most of the time you end up putting like little sprouts of plants in the environment. You want the plants to establish, get some roots in the ground, especially with like a bearded dragon. If you don't have some roots established, the bearded dragon is going to knock those plants over the first day you put them in the enclosure. And some other, like I know monitors and some other bigger species of reptiles that are more tropical, they will just go right through and knock plants down. And a lot of people, they build their enclosure and they want to put the reptile in it like that. And another thing that I would say, now they're actually starting to come to me. I've seen a lot of people make a bioactive environment with plants, but don't put an LED light over the top of it. And then their plants start dying. And there's been a few people that I've actually told that they're supposed to put LED lights for the plants to grow, and they still don't want to do it. And a lot of people think putting the enclosure in front of a window is going to be enough for the plants to grow. And it might help for a little while, especially when it gets to wintertime. Those plants are going to go. They're going to die.
That's a hard call, because UV is important for reptiles. And I know a few people that I've talked to about bioactives that don't use UV. And I understand where you're coming from here. But what they do instead, and I've done this myself with lots of success, is, number one, choose the right plant. And I think Laura is saying that too. Find the right plants. So I don't go out there and get the plants that need this huge amount of lighting and UV light and all this. So I'll get plants that are a little bit low light. And that works for me, because then I'll put a nice high intensity fluorescent, but I'll also put incandescent bulbs on there as well to give the plants multiple wavelengths. Pathos. Frank, every single one of my
struggled with mine for a while.
Did you really?
Pathos.
It takes a long time. It takes a long time.
Because with my chameleon enclosure, so I have right here I have a pothos plant, and behind I have a feeder right here. Behind here I have a pothos plant, and then I have a money tree, an umbrella tree, and a spider tree in the bottom. And then I have the pothos kind of going all up in this area, vining around, because my chameleon enclosure is a semi-bioactive enclosure. It's not fully bioactive. But because I typically put, because you have your LED lights, you have your UVB lights, and then you have your heat bulbs. For the longest time, I would use hardware store floodlights for heat bulbs because they are significantly cheaper than reptile store brands. And I always use like the hardware store ones, dome lights, because they're significantly cheaper than the reptile brand ones. But lately, there was a law passed and they're trying to get rid of floodlights. So I've been swapping to Arcadia lights lately, and I use the dimmable Arcadia lights, and I've noticed that they have a very long lifespan, which is really nice. And I put dimming switches on all of my reptile heat bulbs. I have a UVB monitor, and then I also have a temperature gun, and I make sure that all my reptiles' basking spots are the correct temperature. And if it's too hot, I'll turn my dimming switch down. And then there's a few reptiles you can get away with, like crescent geckos and gargoyle geckos. You don't need UVB. I put UVB on them because I'm extra with all of my reptiles. But like bearded dragons, you need UVB, otherwise they will get metabolic bone disease. Chameleons, they will get that as well, and they need it. So it's a hit or a miss, and you don't need UV light for the most part. I always recommend you can get a $15 tube LED light from Walmart, and that would be perfect for plants. And LED lights are very low cost to run. So I always recommend any bioactive environment, just run an LED light over the top. It's not going to hurt your electric bill any. You can get some nice cheap ones from the store, and they're going to benefit your plants so much, especially like if you live in a state like Wisconsin where we're going back and forth between seasons, especially in the wintertime. You want to make sure you have that LED light in the enclosure.
Especially in the last week.
You mean like?
Oh yes, it's pouring outside right now.
Oh yeah, and it's 58 degrees.
It was 90 yesterday. Now it's down to.
Yes, it was. It was 90 down by you guys. Because I got off the phone with my dad yesterday. My dad lives in your guys' area, and it was 78 was the peak here, but it was 90 by you guys, and I was like, that's such a big temperature difference for us being about 2.5 hours apart.
Yeah, it's huge.
We just had a comment here. I've got to add this real quick. I saw it pop up. I haven't read the whole thing, but the governor dropped the light ban due to being used for animals. The last I heard, you are absolutely right. And if you know Shane Agger from ZoomEd, he's going to come out with a statement. He's going to come out with some information. ZoomEd will come out with some information. They came out with a little bit recently, but stating that, but they're going to come out with more information in the near future. But that was a key for the government. Just like within 2 or 3 weeks ago, they dropped the ban. Good call.
Yeah,
good call. Thanks for bringing that up.
I did not know that. I am very thankful. I'm thankful that I know that. I'm gonna stick with the dimmable floodlights from Arcadia because I love that I can control the wattage, and I can give, because like beardies, their basking spot should be 110. Leopard geckos, say like 95. My chameleons, 85. So I'm able to control it to the dot with a dimming switch, and you can. You can get dimming switches for like $12-15 on Amazon, and I love them so much. And to me, it's all about providing the best care you can for the animal and making sure everything is possible. And I have a very bad spoiling tendency with my reptiles. I will spend way too much money on them if I know that I'm giving them the best care I can possibly give them.
There you go. I want to get back to something just came to my mind. I apologize for kind of going back and forth here, but
you're okay.
Mistakes in bioactive. One that I can think of is, we talked about plants, but in a combination, and you touched on it just very briefly. And I want to make this point so clear. I have plants, I have bioactive, so I need to water this thing like every 6 hours. More water. That is I'll be honest. That was my thought. I have bioactive. I have plants. I need to be watering this thing constantly. And that's, unless you have pothos, pothos, you're probably not going to kill your plants if you're watering less frequently than more frequently. So that's one thing that I've done wrong and fixed, and hope that helps everybody else.
I don't even water my enclosures. I do a mist. I mist, and then misting for the most part as the water droplets run off from the plant leaves and they go to the bottom of the enclosure most of the time. That's enough to keep the plants going. And I'd say once a week, I take a brief look at like the bottom of the enclosure, see if the substrate looks like it's getting a little dry, then maybe I'll grab a cup from my kitchen and fill it up with water and add a little extra water. But for the most part, I missed my chameleons are on an automatic mister. My geckos I missed my by hand. I plan on doing them automatically as well. And if you do get an automatic mister, Mist King, the brand company Mist King, best automatic misting system. I've used 3 different kinds of misting systems for my chameleons. At one point, I had 3 entire chameleon enclosures on one misting system, and it worked really, really, really well. I love Mist King's products, and they have such a large variety of connections and tubings to where you're able to customize any misting system for any needs for any kind of tropical animal. And I love that very much. And then as far as watering like an arid enclosure works, I would just mist right around the base of where the plants are a little bit. If you're to do succulents once every couple of weeks, just a nice light mist. And then if you have that, like I said earlier, the hydration station, like a nice piece of cork bark with a handful of sphagnum moss underneath it for the invertebrates. I'd probably miss that a couple times a week. With it being drier, it's going to dry out relatively quickly. But no, for the most part, if you miss your enclosure nicely every day, you shouldn't even need to do a full-on watering. From my experience with my bioactive enclosures,
We have a couple of people say that they do the misting once a day, and then do a full watering once a week, and that's pretty much my schedule. I'll mist once a day, once every 2 days. It's kind of funny because I've talked to 2. This is so interesting. I try to hit the bigger topics because it applies to more people. But in the last 2 days, this is the 3rd conversation that I've had about misting with. I've done interviews with a couple of reptile keepers, and we talked about misting, and they mist in the morning rather than the evening. And I kind of have stopped and said, why are you misting in the morning? Well, that's when the animals are going to get the dew. So why would you mist during the night? They're not used to that. And I thought about it. I don't know if it matters that much. I'm just saying it's kind of interesting that I've heard this now 3 times in probably a week and a half or so. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, with my chameleon enclosures, I have to water some of the plants because my misters don't reach the pothos plants that are in the very back of the cage, so I have to water those. But for the most part, I would say just keep an eye on the substrate once a week, a good check. And if you notice that your misting isn't sufficient enough to keep, because you want the substrate, especially for tropical environments, you want the substrate to be a little bit moist at all times. The isopods need it. The reptile needs it. They need that humidity. And a lot of humidity comes out of the moist substrate. And I just mist my enclosures once a day. Once a week, I get a little check on them. Sometimes I'll stick my finger in there a little bit, and if it feels like it's getting a little dry, take a cup.
I have to do a shameless plug time for Derek Freeman. We talk about podwicks all the time here, but obviously for isopods, what a wonderful invention, thought that Derek had with podwicks, which is a wicking product that wicks water.
I've used podwicks before.
Do you
They're
really?
awesome.
Derek, for my 750 enclosures, I'm going to put in an order with you soon here. I'm going to take out a loan against the house so that I can have podwicks in every single one of my enclosures. Seriously, though, podwicks aren't just for isopods. I use podwicks for our insects, and I shouldn't tell you this, but I just ordered a bunch for our dubias. So I would like to see somebody share with me a picture of Podwicks in a reptile, in a bioactive enclosure. That would be so cool. If you have one, share with me.
Yeah, I stay away from using podwicks for certain species of isopods because they like to play merry-go-round around the podwick when I'm trying to collect them for expos. And I get frustrated, especially my powders. They frustrate me very, very much. But
So Derek, some kind of a collection cup on your Podwicks so that when they do gather there, you just pull that collection cup off and collect it, so effortless.
But the ones that I used were the older ones. I know he's got some newer models that are slightly different. I just haven't had the money to invest in a nice big order with him myself to get more.
Neither does
Um,
Wally.
but when I first heard about them, I thought they were an amazing product. And then I actually got a bunch of colonies of isopods from Ryan. He was trying to get rid of some whole colonies. So I met him on the border of Wisconsin and Illinois and picked them up from him.
Oh, cool.
And half of his bins had podwicks in them. And that was my first time actually having hands-on experience with podwicks. And but I think they're an awesome product too. And I've seen a lot of I checked out the website a few months ago and I saw quite a few new variations that Derek's came up with them. And so I'm very interested at some point possibly about having them as a product I'd like to put on my table. I've talked with Derek in the past, actually. I was going to do a bulk order of wholesale podwicks with him to put on my table, but I ended up not having the money to be able to do it at the time. And I had to prioritize something else. But I definitely would like to have some stuff on my table, some podwicks in the future, because I also wholesale. I don't know if you know who Hellfire Exotics is, Joe Loma. Mm-hmm. Really good friend of mine. Been working with him for a while. And I do his isopod vents. I love his isopod vents. I love the adjustable airflow. I'll grab one of my bins with him.
Frank, I didn't notice that. I kind of lost track recently of my numbers. Thanks for mentioning that. Thank you, everybody that subscribed. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So these are his Hellfire, or Joe is going to be changing from Hellfire Exotics to Reptiform. He's rebranding.
Yes.
But these are his vents. You turn it, and they're adjustable airflow vents. And so you can customize the airflow just by turning it. And I love these vents so much. This is a product that I do have on my table right now in multiple different color variants. But I'd say in the last 3 years, there has been so many new cool products or older products that have been reinvented and integrated for isopods, the bug keeping. I'd say 3D printing really changed the reptile and invertebrate keeping hobby as a whole. 3D printing has done so many massive things, and now we have so many cool care products.
I think it's changed a lot of
hobbies. I agree with that.
Since like COVID, because everybody except Supreme Gecko is 3D printing, I think, right now. So
I'm not. Time for that. One of my friends is getting one next door, so I think I'm gonna have him making some nice little table things for little kids for me.
Yeah.
To put on there.
Speaking of that, I'm going to segue into your business again, and we're talking about Resort to Bio. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see your table? Where do you see your show presence in the next year, in the next 5 years?
I think I'm for the most part going to stay in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's my place. I love Wisconsin. And I know in a couple of the neighboring states, there's a couple other people who do very similar stuff to I do. And I don't want to step on other people's territory, I guess you could say. And this is just a hobby. It's something that I'm doing for fun. And I want to help people out and offer difficult to get products. I mean, there's lots of people out there who work so much they don't have the money to go out and collect some of the stuff themselves that I sell. So I try to I'm gonna stay in Wisconsin. I might do some of the bigger shows like Tinley, here and there. But Scaled Up is my home. I grew up on Scaled Up Expo. I love all the vendors there, and Dyllan is an amazing person. And so I actually plan on becoming a sponsor for Scaled Up this year. Scaled Up is my home, and I'm for sure gonna stay I plan on going to every single Scaled Up Expo this year. And then I'm working on online. So I do currently ship. I don't advertise it too much as far as dry goods go. I can ship dry goods, but I don't have a lot of boxes on hand. Within the next month to 2 months, I will be purchasing I asked Ryan what he commonly uses for his dry good orders, and he gave me all of his box sizes. So I'm going to order all of those and have those on hand for multiple orders. And then as far as isopods go, I can ship isopods. I made 50 insulated boxes. I'm stocked up on cryo packs. I ran out of packaging paper out of all the things to run out of. I ran out of packaging. I have full heat packs, cryo packs, cold packs, insulated boxes. I ran out of packaging paper, but I believe tomorrow my next order of that should be showing up. And then if I have any orders, I do lots of isopod auctions as well. And pretty soon here, I got so many species that I'm probably going to be doing a couple giveaways here soon.
Cool.
But within the next year, I would like to have my own website up. And as of right now, I'm a sole proprietorship, so I plan on becoming an LLC within the next year.
I've said this to other people. I didn't become an LLC until probably 2 or 3 years ago. So 20 some years of not being LLC, I didn't see any difference. You can for safety purposes. I mean, gosh, what's the liability seriously though? So it's
as
up
of
to
right
you.
now for me, no. If I was
Right?
breeding reptiles, I feel
Yeah.
like there'd be a lot more liability, but I'm just doing bugs and
Yep.
bioactive dry goods. So it depends on how far it goes, but yeah, I plan on having a full scale website within the next 6 to 8 months. And I'm still working on my bug shipping. I've had Ryan Pavey help me out a lot. I know he has a very good reputation with having very well shipped bugs and very minimal DOAs. So he's been helping me with getting my bug shipping right. But within the next 5 years, I still see myself doing online orders, having an online shop and expos. Within the next 10 years, my ultimate goal is I would like to own my own reptile shop in central Wisconsin. I would like to be a bioactive reptile and invertebrate shop. And since I'm located in central Wisconsin, it's perfect for anyone who's in Wisconsin. It's not like if I was in super southern Wisconsin, northern Wisconsiners would have a 4 or 5 hour drive. But with me being in central Wisconsin, kind of everyone who's on the edge of Wisconsin will have an even drive. Because I mean, I know there's Reptile Rapture in Madison. They're a good store.
We're
And
hugely fortunate in southern Wisconsin. I'm just going to do another shout out here. Sorry, folks, but I like to promote good people. We're fortunate that we have Reptile Rapture, Animal House Pets and Supplies, and we have Captive Bred down in Waukesha, which are just phenomenal for knowledge
Captive
and
Bred is nice
care
too.
and taking the time to talk to people. They're all three of them. All three of them are A plus 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 plus.
Where I
Pet
saw
store.
my first the one in Waukesha is where I first saw my first leatherback bearded dragon. Never seen one in person.
Yep.
Or no, it was a silkback, not a leatherback. It was a silkback.
Ryan does amazing things with beardeds. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that they existed, but I never saw one, and I touched one, and I was like, that is so weird to feel a
Yes.
bearded dragon like that. And I was
Yeah.
gonna get it, but then I heard you have to put like coconut butter on its back every week, and I was like, that is too high maintenance for me right now. That's future if I
Not
want
me.
one.
Nope. You talked about expanding the business, the store. How about other animals? Have you thought about doing other animals? What do you see yourself in 5 years? Are you still doing pretty much exactly what you're doing, or could you expand into millipedes and jumping spiders and
I will not do other invertebrates. Okay, that's kind of a lie. So I have some blue death fainting beetles right now that I'm actually working on breeding.
Very cool.
I'm experimenting with them. Um, I'm not really interested. I like a lot of other invertebrates, but with the time that I have, I don't. I'm gonna stick with my isopods and springtails. I don't really have. I have to pick and choose what I'm gonna put my time into, and isopods and springtails are my true hobby and passion. Yeah, happy Father's Day to Ryan as well. If he's watching this, I don't know if he is. But I I've been possibly talking with bugs and beings, well, snotty bugs now, and I might me and him might work together a little bit on some stuff, and I might go to him for my other invertebrates in the future because I would like to sell them. I'd like to have them available on a website when I get to that point. But I mean, I'm a dad. I have a full-time job outside of this. I was working at Quick Trip as well. I was working at a factory full-time, and I was working part-time at Quick Trip, and I was doing this, and I had to leave Quick Trip to work get the business better in shape. But there's so much, and it's also about space. If I were to have enough space, and I have a lot of love for a lot of like not so much centipedes, but I love millipedes. I love scorpions, the whip-tailed scorpions, the macaroons. I love a lot of those things, but I just don't have the time, and I don't see myself in the future having time to work on those things. As far as reptiles go, I do want to breed some reptiles in the future, but I'm going to stay away from there's so many snakes out there. I don't want to breed snakes. I feel like snakes are a little overbred, and I don't want to contribute to that. Same thing with leopard geckos and bearded dragons. I think there's so many other people out there that do a great job at that already that I don't need to put myself in that market. I'm just going to leave that one alone. But I would like to at some point possibly get into breeding Jackson chameleons. Jackson chameleons are I know there's a guy in Wisconsin who breeds panther chameleons. Veiled chameleons are everywhere, so I don't want to contribute to veiled chameleons. There's enough of them out there. But Jackson chameleons are an awesome species. They're the species of chameleon that have 3 horns that come out of their forehead. So I would love to I'd love to breed some Jackson chameleons, and then, like I said before, the leaf-tailed geckos. I know a couple people who breed them, and I know that they're kind of an endangered species right now, and there's not many people who captively breed them. So once I'm at a good spot financially, and I'm able to, because it's a passion project of mine. It's more of I'm going to be doing it for a hobby because I know they're expensive reptiles, and not many people are going to always have the money to spend on those kind of lizards. So it's more to contribute to helping with them no longer being extinct. Parson chameleons.
Yeah, Frank's
Parson
suggesting you get
chameleons.
a gaggle of parson chameleons.
That is a species that I want as well. My
Oh.
favorite species of chameleon are elephant-eared chameleons.
Oh yeah.
They have the big, ginormous flaps on their heads. I love those guys.
And
They
they're
look
not
so
that-
goofy.
They're not that huge either. They're a
No.
relatively medium sized. I'll say Frank, the first time I saw Parsons in person, I had, like Dyllan, I had started my reptile keeping with chameleons. Started with veils and purchased panthers like immediately. Purchased some of the pygmy chameleons as well. But the first reptile show that I went to, and somebody had a panther chameleon out on top of a display, so it was like a little bit higher than eye level. I was shocked at the size and the beauty, and I said that's one of the most regal, elegant animals I've ever seen in my life. They're just amazing to see something like that in person.
I've never seen a Parsons chameleon in
Oh.
person. I have yet to see one.
They're super rare, so it's not common to see them. So we have some suggestions. You're talking about the small Europlatus, and you're talking about the Satanics, but a lot of people are saying maybe think about the Ebinawi first to get your feet wet with that small Europlatus group.
Ebinawi?
Yeah, I've had Ebanawi in the past as well and had success with them. Um, and again, going back, I was buying the Satanics wild, so I would keep them for about a year or so, and they would die on me. No information on them at all back 25 years ago. But I've had Ebanawi and I had success with them. So think about that. Kind of look them up and do a little research on them.
I'm pulling them up on my other monitor right now quickly because I'm curious on what they look like.
Cool animals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know what they are now.
Yeah, they're very, very, very similar, but they have less requirements. They're a little bit more forgiving, if you would. Well, I tell you what, you have some amazing, amazing plans. I love the direction that you are going, but even more impressive is how you've grown your business, how you've grown your passion for what you're doing in the last. Yeah, I struggle saying this, in the last 2 or 3 years. That's incredible. So hats off to you for doing that. But absolutely, it's going to be exciting to see where you take Resort to Bio in the next year, and certainly in the next 5 years. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun journey for you. Very excited.
I appreciate it very much. I'm excited myself. I've made a lot of great friends. I have lots and lots of support from a lot of people in the community, and I would not be where I am today if I wouldn't have had the help from all the people that I've had help with, especially in the amount of time that I've gotten to where I am.
It's all about networking. It's all about getting help from other people. Here, we had Derek in. We talked about Hellfire, or Joe's new. It's a good community, and there's a lot of people trying to help other people to see them succeed as much as anything. So, again, great people in this community. I think you're going to be one. You already are one of them, and I think that you're going to be a solid member of this community for years and years to come. You've got your mind on the right path. You've hitched your wagon to a star, and I cannot wait to see where you're at in about 5 years.
I appreciate it very much.
My pleasure. Our pleasure entirely. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. I was so excited.
Well, it's exciting to see people doing the right thing in the hobby, and I've said this over and over and over. We could have many different guests on the show, and I'm kind of picky to get the right people on the show to talk about what they're doing and their direction and their passion. And there's many people that don't come on the show, and I like it that way. This is a good community, and hopefully we're building a good community on this channel, and hopefully we'll be around for at least another couple of months.
I hope so. I was just trying to put the link out. Somebody wanted the elephant ear chameleon, but I can't get the picture to work, so I put the link on there.
There you go.
That's what I was about to do that too.
Yeah.
When you came up to my table, and you invited me, my girlfriend started tearing up. She was so happy.
Oh.
Oh, excuse me for a moment.
That's cool.
That is
the first time I met you.
Cool.
The first time I met you was 4 years ago, and I went up to your table and you had the tuxedo geckos.
Oh yeah, yes.
And you had 3 of them in a cup. And I wanted to get them from you so bad, but I did not have the money to get an enclosure set up for them. But that was the first time I met you.
So my mind works really weird. And I'm going to be honest. Yeah. So I can talk to somebody at a show and they could literally walk around that row and come back. And it's like, I've never met them in my life. I have no clue who it is until something like they stood in front of our table for, 2 minutes and asked about, what's the origins of the Periodora picta? And I explain, they walk around and I have no clue. And we're talking for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And then they say something about, yeah, thank you for letting me know about the origin. And it's like gears all lining up. Dyllan.
Was at a Green Bay.
I remember that. And it wasn't until this second that I made the connection from the show Sunday to us talking about geckos at Green Bay a few years ago. That when you mentioned the Oreophilus, it was like, I know this guy.
I'm still interested in them. I just need space now. I want them.
I guess they stayed that way. When they
Yeah,
grew up.
I'm very sad that they lose those colors because they're so gorgeous.
Beautiful babies.
They are. They're super
No.
cool.
They're on my list.
We just collected eggs today, and I think we collected 6 Oreophilus eggs. So it's in the process. We brumated a long time this year, so hopefully we get some babies coming pretty quick. I don't want to keep you any longer. This is a long time to be on here. Frank says 24 hours. I thought I would beat him before he said that, but I was a little bit late with that. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Best of luck. We'll see you.
No problem. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you to everyone who's watching.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Have fun in lacrosse.
Good night. Thank you.